Welcome to Krav Life today. I'm Paul Simos, and today I've got a special guest, Moshe Katz. How are you doing, sir?
Doing great today, thank you.
Awesome. So, can you tell us a little bit about how did you get involved in Krav Maga? Like, how did all this happen for you?
Okay, well, it was a combination of two factors that got me started in karate, actually, or karate.
Okay.
One was my sister-in-law saw the movie The Karate Kid, like everybody else, and said, you got to go see that movie. And I'm like, nah, that sounds boring. I'm not interested in it. And the other thing was I was a supporter or a follower of a man called Rabbi Meir Kahana, who in American history is considered quite a radical. He was the founder of an organization called the Jewish Defense League, or the JDL, which in some circles is a notorious terrorist organization name, so to speak. But in my world, he was someone who stood up for Jewish rights and stood up for defending Jews at any cost. And he coined the phrase, never again, which simply means never again will we go down without a fight. Not never again will the Holocaust take place, or never again will a massacre take place, but never again will we be so quiet and silent, so to speak, in the face of a tragedy. So those two influences encouraged me to begin Shurin-Ru Karate in Jerusalem many years ago when I was a student in the yeshiva, which is a rabbinical academy, like an academy for training rabbis. And I got involved in karate. And over the years, between moving to different places, I migrated to different styles of karate, including ninjutsu with Frank Dukes. And then when I came back to Israel, I was looking for something very practical and hard-hitting. I trained in Kyokushin karate in the States under Shigeru Oyama, Saikoshin Shigeru Oyama in those days. And a friend advised me to go look for Itay Gil. And he said, Itay Gil is what you're looking for: full contact, hard-hitting, bone-breaking, let's go to the hospital kind of martial arts. So that appealed to me. I was young and I liked the fighting. And I went there for the full contact training. And then I discovered that part of the training included Krav Maga, but in those days we didn't really call it Krav Maga. It was more just survival training. So I got to the Krav Maga actually accidentally through looking for the full contact karate training.
Oh wow! And then so how did your Krav training progress from there?
Well, I trained with Itay for 18 years. And basically, he discontinued his own training, his own teaching of us. He became more international, went into private security sort of things. But I trained with him for 18 years, hardly missing a lesson for 18 years. Meaning, he used to say about me, as much as I know the sun will rise tomorrow, I know that Moshe will be on the mat. And just to answer a question that wasn't asked, sometimes people ask me, what is the secret to success? And I say, well, you got to be tall, talented, strong, gifted athlete. You know, nonsense. I'm none of that. Dedication. 3 times a week, there were 3 lessons. 3 times a week, I was there. Extra training, I was there. So I was at Itay's training all the time for 18 years. And then gradually, then afterwards, I began to look at techniques as I began teaching. And I saw certain things, I don't want to say shortcomings, but certain things that I felt could be improved when you're working with everybody, not just special forces, not just, natural athletes and big, strong, tough guys, women, children, all kinds of people, handicapped people, non-athletic people, uncoordinated people. And I began to evolve the techniques with the same principles that I was taught, but to reach more people. I'll just give you one example that was one of those like bing lights goes off. A young woman named Naomi was doing I was teaching a class in Rehovot in Israel, and I was teaching a gun defense technique. And she said, I can't make it work. And I came over like, okay, let me show you what you're doing wrong. I looked at her. I said, you're not doing anything wrong, but it's not working. And I looked at her arms, which looked like toothpicks, and I realized she just didn't have the physical strength to do it. So instead of saying something's wrong with a student, went back to Mr. Miyagi, no such thing as bad student, only bad teacher.
Yep.
And I said, this technique is out. We've got to find a better technique that works for everybody, that works for other people. So I see that my camera is crooked, so we got to straighten it out there. That's better. Okay. So I went back to the concepts and said, we have to find a technique that doesn't depend upon brute strength, muscle coordination, or speed, but a technique that works for everyone. And that became the guiding principle of everything that I do. I have a slogan of 3 things. I say every technique must be easy to learn, easy to apply in diverse situations, and easy to remember. Then I have another 3, I call it the Three Amigos, based on that movie by Chevy Chase, the Three Amigos. And I call it the Three Amigos, the 3 unreliable friends. And in today's politically correct environment, I have to say, this is not a disparaging remark about Mexicans. It's just the name of the movie, Three Amigos. So I stole that idea. The 3 unreliable friends, as I call them, are speed, strength, and precision. That speed and strength are very difficult to come by when you're really under life and death stress. And strength, I'm assuming that if you're attacking me, you're probably stronger than I am. So if a technique to work, I'm relying upon my strength, my speed, and my precision. Those are 3 unreliable friends. Those are 3 friends that will fail me when I need them most. So that's part of my evolution. More user-friendly techniques for the average person. I'll give you another one of my slogans. I have these slogans. I never wrote them down, so you can steal them if you want. But I call our system the perfect system for imperfect people, and I'm the leader of the imperfect people. I'm the first among imperfects. Nice.
So going back to the Three Amigos there, how can you explain that? Can you expand on that concept a bit more? Because I found that really interesting.
Absolutely. Again, it's through trial and error through many years, and not only through many years, but my advantage is because I teach around the world. I have students in 40 countries, and people from around the world come to Israel to train with me. We have a program I'll tell you about later if you're interested, Tour and Train, where until the whole Corona business hit us, people would come from, you name it, from Afghanistan to New Zealand, from A to Z. Not actually Afghanistan, but Albania to New Zealand, okay? And so I have the advantage of seeing people from a wide walk of life, wide range of different lifestyles, different kinds of people, and looking at the people, looking at the techniques and saying, instead, again, back to Mr. Miyagi, instead of saying there's something wrong with the student, say there's something wrong with the technique. Again, here's another slogan of mine. If a reasonable person can't learn the technique in a reasonable amount of time, then drop it. Because we're not the Shaolin monks. We're not training 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. We're family people, students, university people, hard workers. You have maybe 2-3 hours a week, 4 hours a week to train. That's it. So my style is geared towards those people who have a limited amount of time to train and yet want to be able to defend themselves. So the 3 principles, strength, okay? If I have to muscle my way through a technique to make it work, what if I'm feeling weak that day? What if I'm sick? What if you're the attacker and you're younger and you're a bodybuilder and you're stronger than I am? Or what if you're taking drugs, which give you a feeling of strength? So if I have to force the technique to work with brute muscle, it won't always work. It's like arm wrestling. Sometimes I'll win, sometimes I'll lose. I can't rely upon strength to make it work. I have to rely upon something else. If it's precision, and I have to snap it like Mr. Miyagi with the chopsticks, catching the fly, again, that's difficult. A gun to your head, a knife to your throat, and you expect to have precision. And if you're not precise, you're going to lose it. You're going to, there's no second place on the street. So if I rely upon precision is a very difficult thing to do under stress. And speed is also incredibly difficult to do under stress. In my religious lifestyle, looking at everything I see as a lesson from God. So years ago, without going into too many details, I was fired at. We were trying to defend the Jewish woman against an anti-Semite, and we were fired at. And I was running to the car, and foolishly, I had locked the car door. And I took my keys, and I tried to, open the car door. Where's my hand? Trying to put here, open the car door. And I remember my hand was shaking. My hand was fluttering and totally, shaking. So I sometimes tell people, you want a black belt in Krav Maga? Here's your test. Take the keys and go open a door. Then you get a black belt. Oh, I forgot to mention, but somebody's going to be firing a rifle at you at the same time. Now let's see how calm you are, and let's see how your hand works. David, can you do that right now? Okay. And let's see how your hand works when you're under that kind of stress. And we see that it's very, very difficult to even do a simple act like turning the key. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I incorporate that into our training and say, if we can't do a simple activity like opening a door, which you don't have to be a black belt to open a door. You don't need a black belt in karate or Krav Maga or anything else to be able to open a door. Mm-hmm. And yet, under stress, we can't do this. So how do we have techniques that depend upon that sort of precision? When, like I said, even a simple activity like open the door, put the key in the door, open the door. Well, that's not difficult. It's nearly impossible when you're under stress. Yeah. Someone's firing a gun at you. Someone's pointing a gun at you. Someone's chasing you with a knife. That kind of precision is simply not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You know, life isn't a movie. The movies, I love martial arts movies, but they mislead us. They fool mm-hmm. us, and they create the illusion that I'm going to crouching tiger, hidden dragon the guy. It's not going to happen, and there's no money back guarantee. You're dead. This is the reality. It's not. I'm not going to say I don't think it's going to work. I'm going to say it's not going to work. And, you know, I'm not claiming to be a street fighter. I'm not going to claim that I've been in tons of bar fights, but you can learn anything if you apply yourself to it. I don't have to be a fireman to know what a fire is. No. So I look at these techniques and I say they will not work under stress. If they do, you better get down on your knees and thank God, because it was a miracle. Because the vast majority of techniques that I see taught in every style of martial art will fail. They will fail on the street because they rely upon muscle, speed, precision. These are three friends that will fail you in the moment of truth. And I'm 100% convinced of that.
So how do you train people for it then?
Okay. So first we begin with the humility of understanding that everything we learned until now is sadly pretty ineffective. Mm-hmm. What I try to do, and again, I can't demonstrate it all right now, but is rely upon body movement more than upon hand precision, meaning using the totality of your body to get into the technique rather than just relying upon your arm. If my whole body is pushing my arms are being supported by my entire body. Meaning, again, this is what I teach in my classes, in my seminars. Find a way to incorporate the entire body in every movement that you're doing, which will increase your speed and your strength. It's almost like saying, if the mountain won't come to Moses, Moses will go to the mountain. I try to move mm-hmm. Moses. It's not just because my name is Moshe or Moses, but because we can't move the mountain. You against the mountain are going to lose. So you're the one who has to move. So it's body movement, body repositioning, training yourself how to use your entire body against a small part of the opponent's body, not grabbing. We never grab. We have no techniques that involve grabbing, because if I grab you, you can easily get away. Just like I can teach you, and I'm sure you know how to get out of a wrist grab, mm-hmm. the attacker can easily get out of it. So there's no wrist grabbing, there's no precision, it's not involving strength. It's using the totality of my body, for example, will defeat somebody's hand. You know, I may not be able to defeat this guy in a wrestling match or in an arm wrestling match, but my entire body of whatever, 80 kilos that I weigh or something against a guy's hand, that will work. But my hand against his hand will not work. But another premise is humility. Now, we all claim to be humble. All great martial arts masters are humble. We saw it on television, the great humility, except we're not. The vast majority of human beings, in particular martial artists, are anything but humble. Yep. We all think we're the greatest, our style is the best, everybody else is, stupid, etc. But again, if you take it from a religious point of view, we begin our daily prayers with saying, Reshit Chachma Yirat Hashem. The beginning of wisdom is the awe of God, meaning realizing how great God is and how small you are. Now, I teach this to people, even if they're not religious and even if they're not God-fearing people. The message is the same. Look at God, look at the totality of the universe, and look at yourself. Mm. You have to adapt yourself to the universe. You can't change the universe to fit you. We begin with this humility. I'm a little creature. I'll live 70 years, 80 years, maybe 90 years. I'm a little creature. In our scriptures, we say an insect preceded you in the story of creation, meaning you weren't first man. Before man came insects. So the insect is your elder. He came before you. You got to respect him. We were the last ones created. So we want to instill this concept of humility, which in terms of Krav Maga expresses itself in a way of saying, there are certain people I will not be able to defeat. Mm-hmm. I will not go against them toe-to-toe. I will not face them in the UFC because I will not beat them. So what I do is I use the totality of my body against a small part of their body just to escape, to get away. I'm not going to try to hurt them. I'm going to try to protect myself because it's not about them getting hurt. It's about me. It's about me winning a fight. Not about me getting away. It's not about winning the fight. It's about getting away. It's about survival. I always tell my students, you want a trophy? You call me up, say I was attacked, I got home safely. Your trophy is you came to see your wife, your children, whoever it is that you like, your dog, your cat. You want a trophy? Call me up, I'll make you a trophy. No problem, I'll pay for it. You know, I've had so many success stories, thank God, of people surviving violent attacks all over the world. If it makes you feel better to have a trophy, Krav Maga champion, I'll have it made up. Cost me $20, that's okay. I'll ship it to you. You know, but seeing the people you love and them seeing you, that's the trophy. So again, the Three Amigos sort of thing is these are three things we can't rely upon. So we try to find alternative methods, meaning, for example, instead of like trying to grab something with my hand, okay, trying to grab it with my hand, maybe I'll use my entire body to push the person away. So my entire body is involved in the effort against the person's hand rather than me, you know, grabbing his hand and trying to overpower him, which I might not be able to do. Mm-hmm. So again, that's humility in saying, you may be a better fighter than me. And here's another brilliant idea, which you're free to share. Here's a little secret. I got this from Woody Allen's Comedy Act.
Nice.
You know, he said, you know, every year, I'll say it slowly so everyone can understand it. Every year I get a year older. But the criminals remain 25 to 26, right? The young thugs are still 17, 18, or 20. But every year I get older. 10 years ago, I was 10 years younger than I am now. I've aged in 10 years. But the criminals in the street, they haven't aged.
Right.
So whereas years ago, I was 25 and they were 25, then I was 35 against 25 and 45 at the end and 55, it keeps going to their advantage. So if I'm going to keep relying upon my muscle, my speed, my precision, it won't stand the test of time. So I've got to find other ways, more clever ways.
So is this like how we would say here, like using gross motor skills rather than fine motor skills?
Yeah. Gross motor skills, less precision, less reliance upon the good fortune of having to catch the knife in midair or something like that, which everybody preaches that, or a lot of people do, but when you actually look at techniques, they don't do that. So with us, we're constantly reevaluating our techniques, both in terms of objective look at them and subjective how people handle the techniques. Meaning if you come to my class and I teach you a technique 3 times and 3 lessons in a row and you're not doing it right, you're out. No, the technique's out. I have to re-examine the technique and say, this is a normal guy. You're not handicapped, thank God. You're mentally capable. If I didn't succeed in teaching the technique in 3 lessons, maybe not mastering it, but knowing it well enough to defend yourself, something's wrong with the technique, not with you. Because you're a normative person, you should get it. So where I feel that a lot of styles are lacking, and I'm not saying this out of arrogance or out of anger towards them, but I studied with a lot of teachers, is you just have to remember too many things.
Yeah.
And I am considered somebody with a fairly decent memory, but I can't remember it. And I can't go to a fight with my notes.
It's like, hold on.
Right. I have like paid, books and books and books of notes. I'll just give you an example. 1 second. Here. Give Dr. Beasley a free advertisement. I used to attend karate college every summer. So if you look here, I don't know if you can see, where is it?
Yeah,
this is Karate College, Radford, Virginia, 2003. Notes by Moshe Katz. So I go through, this is Kobutan techniques. I go through this, look how many pages there are. this is a week. Wait a second. This is look how many. This is a weekend.
Yeah.
This is a weekend of notes and pictures and diagrams. I'm a very academic person. Notes here from Henzo Gracie's class, from Mark Hatmaker, from Okinawan Kempo, from McCoy on grappling, and Matt Hamilton, and so forth. How much of this can, where are you again? How much of this can I possibly remember?
Mm-hmm.
So what I try to do is break it down to a few simple bullet points, a few simple concepts that people can remember. Like I say, easy to remember, easy to learn, easy to apply in many situations, and easy to remember. Mm-hmm. So whereas years ago, our style of Krav Maga would consist of, for this wrist grab, we're going to use an amazing technique that I learned in ninjutsu. And for this choke, we're going to use a fantastic technique that I learned from a grappling instructor. But it becomes one technique for this and one technique for that. And then the moment the truth, you say, well, wait a minute, was that ninjutsu or jujitsu? Which technique is that? And you forget.
Right.
But if you take a few simple principles and say we're going to use the same principle again and again and again and again, simple people like us can remember it. Mm-hmm. I'll give you, just if I may, one other analogy of the way that I try to inculcate people with this idea. I say, you want to see a grown man or woman cry in half an hour. So I say like this. Imagine you went to if you went to college for 4 years or longer, mm-hmm. and you studied something that you are no longer using. Meaning if you studied history and now you're a high school history teacher, this won't apply to you. If you studied science and now you're a scientist, doesn't apply. But if you studied, like me, Soviet foreign policy, right? And for 4 years, which was a great career choice.
Yep.
So if I say, like, if I studied Soviet foreign policy, and I'm a fairly intelligent person, a fairly good student, and you say, okay, now Moshe, you have half an hour, take, one of these pieces of paper, what they call A4, you got half an hour, write down your name. First, write down your name, then write down how much money did you spend on your college education. And then over the next half hour, fill 2 sides of the page with information that you remember from your 4 years in college. I want to bet a lot of money, Paul, that people will be turning in empty papers, but they'll be wet from tears.
Yeah.
Because you'll say, I spent $80,000, 4 years of my life, and I can't fill 2 sides of a piece of paper. Because the way we learn things is memorization. And if I went to college 20 years ago or 10 years ago, I don't remember anything. Yeah. So I can say I went to college, I can show you a diploma, but what's it worth? But if college taught me how to think, how to analyze, then I gain something of value. So I tell my students, I often forget the technique myself, but I remember the concept. And sometimes we'll face a new gun threat or a new knife situation, and I'll forget the technique we did 3 months ago, but I'll apply the same principles, and I'll come up with a technique which will turn out to be a slight improvement over what we did previously. And they'll say, oh, did you change that technique? Well, I might have. Let me go look at the old video and I'll tell you if I did. Because I don't remember what I did 3 months ago. I don't have a photographic memory. So I take these simple concepts, the principles. So when people like write to me and they say, I want to earn a black belt in your style or a blue belt, how many techniques do I need to know? I say, we're not technique-based, we're concept-based. So they say, you don't have techniques? Well, of course we have techniques. Of course we have techniques. But the techniques are secondary to the concepts. If you understand the concept, the technique is simply a derivative of that concept. Because you might, A, forget the technique, because we're just human, and B, you may encounter a situation that I never covered because I was unfamiliar with it. You may be living in a country where the crime is different. You may be in Brazil where crime is different than Israel or Ukraine. Mm-hmm. Every country has slightly different culture of crime. So I can teach you something that applies to me, but there'll be a situation that will come up in Brazil that I'm not familiar with. But you can take those concepts and still defend yourself by applying them. So it doesn't depend upon the memorization.
It's like a principle-based teaching rather than technique-based teaching.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's kind of like very traditional martial arts is technique-based. It's like you got to know these techniques for white belt, these for yellow, these where with principle based, it's kind of, well, here's the situation, now apply the principles.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Because like I said, we forget, we encounter new situations, or what may work for me may not work for somebody 6'10" or overweight or broad shouldered. It might not work. I may teach a technique where you're being grabbed in a choke, in a what do you call it, behind the back pretzel, and I'm saying reach over and grab your arm, like this or something, and there'll be a guy who can't reach his arm because he's just so big that he can't reach his own arm. So what? He can't do the technique? No. So you say, grab your belt, grab your shirt, grab his belt, apply the concept, and then I've often had situations, people call me up and say, hey, this is Alex from South Africa. I was just held up and I did the following thing. Did I do the right technique, sensei? And I'll say, are you calling from heaven? No. From the morgue? No. From the hospital? No. Then yeah, you did the right technique.
Well, yeah, because in the end, that's what Krav Maga is, right? Just to go home safe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So will you teach like different, I guess, for lack of a better term, techniques or different ways of doing or different ways of applying the principle to someone that's a lot smaller, or versus someone that's big?
Well, I have another slogan called the weakest link is the strongest, or the weakest link is the most important. Why? Because I'll take, let's say again, we take a guy 6'5" and he makes it work. And we take a woman 5'1", it doesn't work. So we'll adapt the technique for the 5'1" person, but then we'll say, what, the guy who's 6'5", he can also use it, even though he could use the other technique as well, but why not use the easier method? So we'll take the least talented person and whatever works for them, we'll say that's the basic technique. However, if somebody says, I can't do it because of certain physical limitations, I'll say, then show me what you can do. If I have a technique that involves picking up your arm this way and picking up your arm this way, and the guy says, I can't pick up my arm here, I can only go, this big. I can't, I've had shoulder surgery, I can't lift it higher. So we say, okay, let's see how we can apply the concept to your body based on your particular body. So we adapt the technique to whatever they can do. I've had people with one arm. I had a motorcycle accident, lost an entire arm. I've had people in wheelchairs. So we just take the concept to each individual, and we don't make a new technique, but we just take the concept and apply it to their body as best as we can to adapt it to them. And in a sense, they're the leader in this process because they're showing me what they can do and what they can't do.
Neat. So when you're teaching, do you also take into consideration the person's natural temperament as well as like their natural body reactions, like flinch response and all that stuff?
It's funny you should mention that. I have a blog. I like writing blogs. At first I was told that it's good for business, and then I find that the blog for me is a therapeutic activity. So I just wrote a blog a few days ago, exactly that question. If you know where my website is, you can find my blogs. I call it The Human Factor. And I address two issues, exactly what you're saying. Like a lot of styles teach the eye gouge. And I'm saying, if you can't do that, and people are like, oh, I can't do that. I can't put my fingers in somebody's eye. I'll never be able to do that. I can't grab somebody's groin. So I'm not going to force you to do that. Physically, you can do it. But emotionally, you just can't see yourself putting your hand on somebody's groin or in their eye. So you know what? I'm not going to try to change who you are. So you hit the throat or you hit the nose. Most people don't have an aversion to hitting the nose. You can't hit the eyes. I'll go for the nose. So we'll adapt it to your psychological makeup. Now, we don't know what you can do in a moment of truth. Could be in a moment of truth when your life is on the line, you will go for the eyes. Right. But if you can't train that way and you say, it just revolts me, I won't show up if you make me do that. So we adapt it to them for their psychological makeup. Like similarly, we adapt techniques for their physical makeup. If they can't do certain techniques, we work with their body. I mean, I have friends who teach other styles of Krav Maga that they've developed, and they'll say to a person point blank, go home. Here's a card of a friend of mine who's a fitness instructor. You need to lose 30 pounds, and then come back and we can talk. Because I can't teach Krav Maga to people with a belly like yours. Whoa. Well, guess what? They probably won't come back. But to me, it's like, this is the body you have at the moment.
Mhm.
This is what we'll work with. For your own sake, I hope you get in shape and lose weight, and it will certainly make life easier for you in all aspects. But I am not requiring that as a precondition to training in Krav Maga. We'll work with the body you have. What if you're 75 years old? Come back when you're 25? Next lifetime?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Better subscribe to a religion that has reincarnation then.
Right. But I'll take a down payment now.
Yeah, there we go. So can we talk about like how you actually do your physical training with people? Like, do you, like I've trained with people that are like, oh, you have to train really fast and explosive all the time, even when you're learning the technique. Even though personally, I believe you have to learn the technique slowly and methodically to be able to really get it ingrained. What's your position? Like, how do you do it?
Okay, I tell people. I'll tell you a quick little story.
Sure.
I try to teach, like you saw in Portuguese before we were talking.
Mm-hmm.
I try to teach in as many languages as possible. Let's rule out Icelandic and Zulu, language of the cliques, those I can't do. But other than that, I've done seminars in German, a little bit of Russian, Italian, Dutch, Spanish, Portuguese. Give me a few weeks and I'll do my best. Once I was told 24 hours before the seminar, they want the seminar in German. So I happened to get a free ticket to Italy because of a canceled flight. So I took advantage of the ticket to go and take a 5-day course in Italian, which was very disappointing. So I won't mention the name of the school. And at one point they gave us a tape recorder and they played the tape recorder and they told us write down the conversation, not a DVD, not a video, but people just speaking on the street in Italy. And it was very muffled. And out of a whole conversation, I caught maybe 3 words. And the guy next to me caught 5 words. And I said, look, I'm a teacher as well. Maybe we can get like a vocabulary list the night before. Maybe it could be a clearer sounding DVD with a video so we can actually see and try to figure out what's going on. I don't mean to tell you how to teach, but we've listened to the tape 3 times. We're not getting anything out of it. So she said, without knowing what I do for a living, she said, man, this is reality. You think people are going to speak slowly to you on the street? Italians speak very quickly. You've got to learn it fast. So I said, I'm actually a Krav Maga instructor, and that's what I do for a living. I said, if you came to train with me, and I said, listen, I'm going to put on a T-shirt that says Muhammad is whatever, the Prophet Muhammad, something very insulting, and I throw in the Muslim quarter of Jerusalem, and I say, and you come back the first day with missing an eye and a broken nose and 5 teeth gone, and you say, maybe you can work on the technique slowly. And I say, hey, man, the reality of the street is people aren't going to go easy on you. You've insulted the Prophet Muhammad. You're going to have to fight for real. So tomorrow wear another T-shirt that says infidel on it. So of course not. So, or like I say to people, Zamechchatuna in Russian. Then I say, repeat that. You can't. It's kind of difficult. So again, of course we start slowly.
Yep.
I tell them Krav Maga is aggressive on the street. Israelis, by their nature, are aggressive enough as it is. Go to the post office and try to, if you're from a civilized country, you'll see what aggression is. I was here before you, get out of the way, I'll beat you up. So we have enough aggression. We have enough built up aggression. Learn the technique slowly, methodically, clearly, get it right. Work with the person and go through the motions and touch their hand and make sure they're doing the technique correctly. Do it 100 times, do it 1,000 times. That's how they used to do judo in Japan. Before you did the actual judo throw, you do 10 times just moving into the throw and then stopping. So absolutely, I know it's not the popular thing because everybody's a badass and a tough guy. But I start slowly, gently. I don't insult my students. I don't humiliate them. I don't mock them. I don't hurt them. Teach them slowly. The aggression will come when they need it.
Yeah. And that's my position as well. That you learn it slowly. You learn the technique better, I guess, is what I want to say there. All right. So can you tell us a little bit more about? You mentioned earlier on you do a was it the tour?
Tour and train, yeah.
Tour and train. That's what it was called.
Yeah. So these days, a lot of people are doing it. I think we were either the first or among the first, where you come to Israel. We have two programs. One is just training for people that have no interest in history whatsoever. And the other is a 10-day program of a balance between training and touring sites in Israel. So the goal is twofold. Part of it is that, you get a little bit of a break from training. Some days it's half a day training, half a day touring. Some days all day, one or the other. But you see things that are interesting from a historical perspective, from a religious perspective. A lot of people that come are devout Christians, Catholics. They want to see some of the places that are important to their religious history. But also that when you see the Israeli and Jewish history, you understand the culture that created Krav Maga. When you walk with me through Yad Vashem, and you hear the stories about how my great-grandfather came to America, he was one of 12, and the 11 others ended up in Auschwitz. When you understand how many of my relatives were murdered in cold blood, how many children were murdered, when you understand the thousands of years of history of suffering of the Jewish people, when you understand the battles that Israel fought and continues to fight to survive as a nation, you understand why Krav Maga is as simple and as direct and as effective as it is. Because we don't live in Pleasantville, Florida. I mean, that's an actual place, and I have students there who are wonderful, and I'm not making fun of them, God forbid. But just as an expression, this is not Pleasantville. This is the Middle East. This is a pretty tough neighborhood. When I go to America, even neighborhoods that are considered difficult, I feel like this stress melting off my shoulders because we live in a different reality. And I grew up in the shadow of the Holocaust. And I grew up knowing that on April 2nd, 1941, all of my father's ancestors and relatives in Ukraine were taken to a ravine, lined up, and machine gunned down. I know that's how my family came to an end in Auschwitz and in pits all over Europe and all the people I know. So that changes how you look at things. And I want to give you one other thing relating to what you said before about training with aggression. I think you see by now I'm a pleasant person. I'm not an angry person. I don't curse a lot. And people often use that against me. He's a soft guy. He's a gentle person. His father was a rabbi. This can't be real Krav Maga. He doesn't have, 20-inch biceps or whatever it is. This guy can't be serious. He looks too gentle. I've even had Jewish students who say, you look more like a rabbi than a Krav Maga instructor. So I don't consider that an insult at all. But then I have what I call my angry speech. And I'm not always politically correct, but I am polite. And I say, I'm angry. I'm angry at the Babylonians. I'm angry at the Egyptians. I'm angry at the Greeks. I'm angry at the Catholic Church. I'm angry at the Protestants. I'm angry at the Spanish who burnt my relatives alive at the stake for professing the Jewish faith. I'm angry at practically every nation, maybe other than the Buddhists and the Albanians, because they've all massacred my people at one point or another. I have a lot of anger issues, but now we're all friends and it's all inside and I keep it under control. I'm in therapy, so to speak, and I keep my anger inside. But if you upset me, if you hurt me, if you hurt someone that I care about, you will see 3,000 years of pent-up anger and frustration and bitterness and rage explode in your face, and you will wish that you were hit by a train because it will be a more pleasant experience. Because you don't know what anger is until you meet me. Just to give you like a little example, I came to Israel at the age of 6 from Massachusetts, and it was Holocaust Memorial Day. And at 6 years old, the level of maturity between an American Jew and an Israeli Jew was already, enormous. And all the kids are crying and they're mourning. And I said, what's going on? What's this day all about? And 6-year-olds are teaching me as a 6-year-old, and they're saying, well, just a few years ago, this is the 1960s, 20 years ago, the entire world ganged up and tried to kill us because we're Jews. And an evil man turned the world against us, etc. And that's why we're sad today. And I didn't understand that I was a part of this. I didn't understand what it meant to be Jewish. I knew there were Red Sox fans and there were St. Louis Cardinal fans. There were New York Mets fans and Yankee fans and the Brooklyn Dodgers, whatever. But I didn't understand this idea of different peoples and different religions and so forth. But at a young age, my fellow students in first grade said, the entire world hates you and wants you dead. That's my welcome to the world at age 6.
Wow.
And I spent my early years seeing videos of piles of bodies and people being pushed into gas chambers and so forth. And this is what I grew up with. This is what I lived with. And then I found out that my own family were amongst them. So this is where my Krav Maga comes from. I mean, I wrote a book about it called Israel, Nation of Warriors. But that's where my Krav Maga comes from. But I don't use it as an angry tool. I don't use it as a method of hatred. I actually use it as a healing way to unite people around the world and say, I don't care if you're Jewish or not. I don't care what religion you are, and I don't care what your ancestors did. Every person has a right to live in freedom. Nobody should be persecuted based on their beliefs, color of their skin, or anything else. I said, I'm colorblind and I'm religion blind when it comes to teaching, because I know what it's like to suffer, because I live with the suffering of 3,500 years.
Yeah. I don't understand, right? The anti-Semitism and the hatred and how what's the new one? Anti-Zionism, right? Where which is just another term for anti-Semitic,
Exactly.
Right? So the Jews or the Israelis are the only people in the world where there's a significant population that does not believe they have a right to self-determination.
Right.
And this is a whole thing that we can go down, and the whole deal with Palestinians, never mind that they didn't even exist until the late 60s, right?
Yeah. Exactly. You know more than most. If we want to talk again, I'm more than happy to go into that topic in a different day if you'd like to.
Oh, I'd love to. I've enjoyed our Krav discussion, but I also enjoy geopolitics and that sort of thing with all that stuff going on. But yeah, I think that the big thing is through we can reach peace, but it's got to be through mutual understanding and education, and because like people here, because I'm in Canada, right? So for the most part, less so now than when I was younger, but and it's because of propaganda, but you would have Jew and Muslim living beside each other, working with each other, talking to each other, and they had no beef with each other. And I know that in a lot of parts of Israel itself, you have that, right? Yes. You'll have Jewish people patronizing Arab-run establishments, or Muslim-run establishments, and they get along, right?
Exactly. I just want to add that when we do our tour and train, we specifically do that. We visit the Bedouin camp and we buy from them. We ride their camels. And I want the students to see that as right-wing and as militant as I am about our self-defense, we go to Abed and Dave and Muhammad and we eat with them and we ride camels with them and we chat with them, and they see that there's not hatred, there's love.
Yeah.
We're in this boat together. Yeah.
And I think because that's the part that we don't see, right? Especially here in North America, is we don't see, they don't cover, the only thing we get on the news is Palestinian protesters throwing rocks at the Israeli military, right? And shootings. Here you don't hear anything about the balloons that Hamas is sending over the wall. We don't hear any of that stuff, right? The rockets, but heaven forbid one IDF soldier shoots a Palestinian. That's everywhere on the news over here, right? And it's not the reality on the ground, because Israel's got one of your biggest political parties is an Arab party, right? Yes. So how you're the judge that sentenced your former prime minister to, was it prime minister or president to jail, was Arab, right? It's if Israel was
apartheid state,
ethnically cleansing Arabs, then how do they reach these positions? How does this happen? It's because it's not the reality that we're being fed. We are being fed a completely different reality of what's going on over there, and Israel itself is actually a model example in the Mideast of the most progressive democratic nation, and the people that support the other side are basically supporting are against democracy.
Very true. I wish everyone felt like you did. We'd be in a much better situation. You understand things, Paul. I appreciate that.
And it just comes from what you consume, right? So with anything, what I do is I try to get both sides, right? I will listen to, because on my Twitter I subscribe to the IDF and the Jerusalem Times and all that stuff, but I also have Al Jazeera and other Muslim or Arab news agencies on there, and see how they report the same event and how things are, and you form your opinions from both sides. The danger is in only picking one side.
Very true.
Right? But anyway, sir, we've gone off topic. We will talk again for sure. I've enjoyed that, and I know my wife and I would love to come on one of those tours. So
once the gates open up again and Corona allows us,
Yeah, you guys are having a tough time there in Israel with it.
Yeah, the airports are still basically closed. It's very difficult.
Yeah. Well, best of luck to you on that front, and I've had a great time talking to you. Hopefully, all our listeners enjoy this interview, and I'd love to have you back on.
It'll be my great pleasure, Paul. Thank you. Pleasure meeting you.
Pleasure meeting you too, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right.